Good day, I'm Theodore Intidakwa, MIB regular, Group 15, presenting on the paradox. If critical thinking is critical to development, why then do some people, even educated people, do not think critically? John Dewey, Robert Ennis, Paul and Elder collectively define critical thinking as an active, disciplined, and evidence-based reflective process. Rather than passive absorption, it requires intellectual responsibility to analyze information and guide beliefs or actions. Dewey focuses on persistent, careful evidence evaluation, while Ennis highlights reasonable reflective decision making. Paul and Elder emphasizes the disciplined structuring of information, which is analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information. The paradox: advanced education does not equal critical thinking. Despite widespread access to knowledge, even highly educated individuals regularly succumb to misinformation and poor judgment because schools often prioritize memorizing facts over teaching active inquiry. The thesis, therefore, is true critical thinking is rarely realized because cognitive biases, social conformity, and rote educational systems prevent even educated individuals from practicing independent reflection. My colleagues will continue with the rest. Thank you.
Adwabuatumafobi is my name. I am presenting on concept of critical thinking. At a core, critical thinking is simply the act of thinking about thinking while you are thinking to make your thinking better, clear, and more easy. Instead of just accepting information at face value of a critical thinker pause. Look at the evidence, question assumption, and evaluating the logic before coming to a conclusion. It is the difference between blindly believing and heading and asking, who wrote this? What is the evidence? And what are they trying to get to do? Here is a simple breakdown of how it works and why it matters. The three pillars of critical thinking: analyzing, breaking a complex problem or a piece of information down into smaller, manageable and parts to understand how it works. Evaluation, judging the quality, reliability, and relevance of the information. This is the data up to date. Why it matters. In every life of professional settings, critical thinking prevents you from being easily manipulated by slang arguments, help you to solve complex and messy information, and ensure that your decisions are backed by solid reason rather than emotion. To my next speaker.
My name is AJ Michael Kwatin Jr., and I'm here to present on the development of critical thinking. To begin with, critical thinking is not a static skill that one has or lack. It's a dynamic cognitive process of actively conceptualizing and applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information. It is a muscle that must be conditioned through consistent practice and exposure to diverse viewpoints. Here is a structured overview of the development of critical thinking, from foundational cognitive shift to practical application. The developmental stage of critical thinking. For university students, the development of critical thinking often follows a trajectory described by intellectual development models, such as William Sperry's scheme. Understanding three stages helps in recognizing where your own thought processes currently reside. First, dualism, the belief that knowledge is binary. Things are either right or wrong, true or false. In this stage, the student looks to authority figures for the correct answer. Second, multiplicity, the realization that authorities may not have all the answers. Here, you begin to accept that multiple perspectives can exist, though you may not yet have all the tools to evaluate which perspective is more valid than the other. Relativism. This is a crucial turning point. You begin to understand that knowledge is contextual. You realize that while different viewpoints exist, they are not all equally supported by evidence. You start weighing arguments based on data, logic, and context. Now to the next speaker.
Hi, I'm Sekinat Isaka. I'm here to present on the importance of critical thinking to development. Development doesn't happen by accident. It requires planning, resources management, and problem solving. Critical thinking is the engine that prevents countries, communities, and organizations from wasting resources on bad ideas. Here is how critical thinking directly drives development. Firstly, it prevents against copy-paste solution. In development, what works in one country or community might completely fail in another due to culture, geography, or economics. Critical thinking allows leaders and planners to evaluate local data rather than blindly copying foreign models. Example, instead of just building a high-tech school because it works elsewhere, a critical thinker will first calculate if the community has a reliable electricity and trained teachers to support it. Secondly, efficient allocation of scarce resources. Development projects often operate on high-tech budgets. Critical thinking involves cost-benefit analysis, weighing the short-term costs against the long-term benefits. It helps decision-making prioritize projects that will have the highest impact, reducing corruption, waste, and project failure. My last point, policy innovation and sustainability growth. True development must be sustainable, lasting for future generation. Critical thinker look ahead to foresee potential negative side effects of new policies. For instance, whilst developing an industrial zoo might boost the economy today, a critical thinker will first analyze the environmental impact to ensure that it doesn't destroy the community water bodies or supply tomorrow. Thank you.
My name is Ryan Vanderpoel, and I'm here to present on critical thinking and why it is important for development. But that brings up a tough question. If it is so crucial, why is it so hard to actually do? The answer lies in our cognitive and psychological barriers. To put it simply, our brains prefer the easy way out. Nobel laureate and Daniel Kahneman proved that humans rely heavily on mental shortcuts called heuristics. Because critical analysis takes so much energy, you see this on campus all the time when a wild rumor about an exam drops in a student's WhatsApp group. Most of us react and forward it instantly rather than stopping to verify the facts. Reacting is just easier than thinking. This mental laziness leads to two major traps. Confirmation bias. We only look for information that supports what we actually believe. In Ghanaian politics, party supporters will often blindly believe fake news about the opposing side but completely ignore the actual facts if it makes their own party look good. Groupthink. We naturally prefer social comfort if the loudest voices in a lecture hall all agree on a topic. It takes massive psychological courage to raise your hand and disagree. In short, our brains are wired to choose speed and conformity over deep intellectual friction. But our minds are not the only problem. The way we are taught matters too. I will now hand to Vicky to discuss the educational barriers to critical thinking.
Hello, everybody. I am Victoria Hini Inima, and I'm here to talk about educational barriers to critical thinking. First of all, we have roots learning. Many schools emphasize memorization instead of teaching students how to analyze questions and evaluate information, teaching what instead of how. Education focuses on content rather than developing reason and critical inquiry skills. Two, we have credentialism. Students may become more concerned with earning grades and certificates than with understanding concepts or challenging ideas. Two, we have authority and conformity. Learners are often encouraged to accept teachers or textbooks views without questioning them, limiting independent thinking. Three, we have fixed mindsets, as explained by Carol Dweck. People who believe intelligence is fixed are less willing to accept criticism or reconsider their views. Unlike those with a growth mindset, knowledge versus critical thinking. Having a degree or extensive knowledge does not automatically make someone a critical thinker. John Dewey argued that education should cultivate reflective thinking through inquiry and problem solving, not just accumulation of facts. Thank you.
I'm Okoko Akusanyenewa, and I'm here to talk about the social barriers to critical thinking. First, social conformity. People often adopt the opinions of family, friends, or society to fit in rather than thinking independently. Group thinking. The desire for harmony within a group discourages questioning, leading people to suppress alternative ideas and accept the majority view. Authority difference. Many people believe information simply comes because it comes from a teacher, leader, expert, or public figure without evaluating the evidence. Cultural and social norms. Individuals may accept tradition, customs, and societal beliefs without questioning whether they are reasonable or justified. Echo chambers and social media. People tend to consume information that agrees with their existing beliefs, reinforcing bias and limiting exposure to different perspectives. Fear of criticism and rejection. Some individuals avoid expressing independent opinions because they fear being judged, criticized, or excluded by others. Thank
My name is Ibrahim Aska and I'll be discussing why education does not guarantee critical thinking. Many people believe that earning a degree automatically makes someone a critical thinker. However, this is not always true. Education can increase knowledge, but knowledge alone does not guarantee good judgment. For example, educated people can still believe misinformation on social media or make decisions based on emotion and personal bias rather than evidence. We also see this on university campus where students sometimes support ideas or candidates without carefully examining the facts. The philosopher John Dewey argued that education should teach people how to think, not simply what to think. Critical thinking requires open-mindedness, self-reflection, and the willingness to admit when we are wrong. Therefore, while education is important, it does not automatically produce critical thinkers. True critical thinking develops when knowledge is combined with curiosity and a habit of questioning assumption. Thank you for listening. I will now hand over to the next speaker.
I go by the name Law Smith Akin. So today I'm here to present on Pathways Forward, promoting critical thinking. So first of all, we are going to talk about social media plus agency kills analysis. So we have current example, which is every time fuel prices change, WhatsApp and X in Ghana fly with go and fill your tank now. Ghana cities 18 liters tomorrow. Educated bankers, nurses, teachers panic too. Why? Fear spreads faster than COPEC, NPA data. Checking fact takes 2 minutes, but forwarding takes 2 seconds. The brain takes easy. Secondly, education, memorization, not reasoning. BEC, WASI, and even some university courses reward write 5 points from the textbook. A University of Ghana law student can memorize sections, but may not ask, this new tax law, who wins? Who loses? What's the loophole? We graduate with certificates, not questioning habits. Pathways forward, making Doomso a case study. When ECG does load shedding or there's a great challenge, don't just complain, teach students to ask. What ECG's official reason versus what independent engineers say? What data on power generation will settle this? What are alternatives? Solar for Kumasi homes, gas efficiency. Second, turn Galamsey into a classroom lab. Instead of shouting ban it or legalize it, ask SHS or university students in Kumasi. What 3 data points will you need to decide if Galamsey helps or hurts Ghana in 10 years? Jobs now versus water for 2050. What moves debate from emotions to trade-offs? Bottom line, Ghana's development problems, Galamsey, flooding, youth unemployment, debt, won't be solved by who shout loudest. They need citizens who can question. The difficult isn't IQ, it's habit. So the pathway forward is practice critical thinking on Ghanaian problems, not foreign examples. Start with Doomso, Galamsey, Trot Fair, school feeding. Ask better questions today, make better Ghana tomorrow.
I am in the person of Akins Alexandra Opong, and I'm here to draw the curtains to our presentation.
In conclusion, as we have shown, this difficulty is not due to a lack of knowledge, but to the complex barriers that stand between knowledge and reflective judgment. We identified 3 key obstacles. First, cognitive and psychological barriers, such as confirmation bias, the Dunning-Kruger effect, the Keman System 1 thinking, which push us toward fast, intuitive judgments over careful analysis. Second, social and educational barriers, including rote learning cultures, authority difference, and algorithmic ego chambers that discourage questioning. And third, the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Having credentials does not automatically mean one has intellectual humility or metacognition. However, the path forward is clear. Drawing on Dewey, Ernest, Paul, and Elder and Dweck, we argue that true reform requires pairing active learning with the structured mechanics of logic, argument analysis, fallacy detection, and evidence evaluation. Coupled with intellectual humility and robust media literacy, these competencies can help us resist misinformation and manipulation. Ultimately, critical thinking is not an automatic byproduct of education. It is a disciplined habit we must choose to practice. If we are to address the challenges of the 21st century, we must move from being merely educated to being genuinely critical thinkers. So this is the end of our presentation. And now we are all aware that critical thinking is critical to development. So as educated people, you are supposed to think critically. So are you thinking critically? Thank you.